This is StopFake, the place where we debunk disinformation and set the record straight on fakes about Ukraine. I'm Tim White, hello there, and this week we dissect the following. US preparing to overthrow the Hungarian government. Americans plan to fight for the Kerch Strait. And Britain wants to bring pro-Russian president to power in Ukraine. So let's get to it. The United States continues to interfere in the internal affairs of other countries and to exert political pressure on governments, so declared RT, RIA Novosti and Ukraina.ru on January the 31st. The publications accuse America's leadership of encroaching on the independence of EU member countries, particularly Hungary, and even trying to overthrow that country's government in a Venezuelan scenario. This is how Russian media responded to a US Senate resolution condemning efforts to undermine democracy and violate human rights in Hungary, introduced by 3 senators in January. The resolution contains no calls for overthrowing the ruling powers in Hungary. It simply records the human rights and democratic norms under attack by the current government and calls on US President Trump to defend them. The resolution is being reviewed by the Senate Committee on Foreign Relations before it will be brought to a vote. 3 senators from the Democratic Party, Dianne Feinstein, Dick Durbin and Chris Murphy, condemned Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán's government for efforts to subvert democracy and violate human rights. The resolution denounces Hungary's attempts to undermine the independence of its judiciary, restrict civil society groups, infringe on freedom of the press and violate the rights of asylum seekers. Last September, the European Union condemned Hungary's human rights violations and after discussions in the European Parliament concluded that Hungary had violated several key EU documents. EU lawmakers voted to censure the Hungarian government for eroding democracy and failing to uphold fundamental European Union values. At the end of January, Russian internet site Newsfront published a story claiming that the US Senate had demanded that President Donald Trump conduct a military operation to liberate the Kerch Strait. The publication refers to a Senate resolution which allegedly calls for such an operation and asserts that Washington is openly demonstrating its role in the escalation of the conflict. In fact, the resolution that Newsfront refers to calls for action to deter Russian aggression in the Black Sea, to strengthen defence aid to Ukraine, and urges the cancellation of the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline. Newsfront further claims that the situation in the Black Sea is heating up and that Washington is not going to stop there. The publication also claims that 39 senators supported the resolution, when in fact 66 senators actually voted for it. The resolution in question, Senate Resolution 27, was introduced in the Senate on the 24th of January. It calls upon the President to work with the United States allies to promptly lead a robust multinational freedom of navigation operation in the Black Sea to show support for internationally recognised borders, bilateral agreements and safe passage through the Kerch Strait and Sea of Azov, and to push back against excessive Russian Federation claims of sovereignty. The resolution also calls on NATO to enhance Allied maritime presence and capabilities in the Black Sea, and on US allies in Europe to deny Russian Navy vessels access to their ports to resupply and refuel. This Senate resolution is a response to Russia's aggression in the Azov and Black Seas, the shelling and capture of Ukrainian ships, and the arrest of the crew. London has come up with a strategy to return Donbass to Ukraine, announced RIA Novosti, RT and Regnum. Referring to a House of Commons briefing paper, these publications claim that Britain allegedly intends to intervene in the March 31st Ukrainian presidential elections to help bring to power a president who will take the country in a new direction, reject Ukraine's pro-Western direction, and thereby end the war in eastern Ukraine. Well, as usual, none of these Russian publications featured a link to the report they referred to and did not even name the report. On the 21st of January, the House of Commons Library published a briefing paper entitled "Cool Conflicts in Russia's Near Neighbourhood." The report focuses on Russia's intervention in several former Soviet republics, It examines areas of conflict and their causes and highlights international attempts to influence Russia and preserve peace. In particular, the report examines the situation in Moldova, Ukraine, Georgia and Nagorno-Karabakh. According to the British parliamentary paper, the Kremlin has sought to use its influence to curb Ukraine's European integration for decades. The annexation of Crimea, the occupation of eastern Ukraine, the seizure of Ukrainian ships in the Kerch Strait on the 25th of November, and Russia's disinformation onslaught against Ukraine are all set forth clearly and succinctly in the report, all of which, of course, isn't even mentioned by RT & Co. The report points out that Russia will try to influence Ukraine's upcoming presidential and later parliamentary elections. If a pro-Russian candidate wins Ukraine's presidential election, reforms in the country will end and Ukraine's integration into the European Union will stop, the report posts. Such a president could bring the conflict to an end, but only by abandoning Ukraine's westward trajectory. The parliamentary report makes no mention of any UK intervention in Ukraine's elections. Quite the contrary. Its central theme is that Russia is trying by every means to regain control over Ukraine's political future. Well, that's it for this week. You can find much more, as always, dissected disinformation on the StopFake website. Be vigilant, look out for fakes, and if you spot any disinformation about Ukraine, forward it to us for a truth autopsy. I'm Tim White, and it's been my pleasure to be with you on StopFake. Thanks for watching.